All right, girly pops. It's Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. So today we're going to react to Amberlynn Reid. I haven't done a lot of Amberlynn Reid reactions, but I thought I would go ahead and dip my toe in. I'm feeling dangerous today. No, but there are certain things that I wanted to respond to in this video. So I'm going to go ahead and watch it. I will say I have seen it before, but we're going to watch it together. I really have a hard time following Amberlynn in this video. I don't know if it's that I'm a dingbat right now, if I'm too weird in my weight loss era where I'm like I'm getting like brain foggy, or if it's the way she's talking. And I guess we'll find out. I guess you guys will tell me. So let's go ahead and do this. All right, girly pops, let's go.
I have an appointment to get... Hey guys, welcome to a new vlog. So today I have an appointment to get a CT scan. So I want to explain kind of what's been happening, but I feel like I need to do just a real quick backstory of when I was diagnosed with uterine cancer. So I get asked a lot, like, what was my biggest symptom of that? It was the fact that I bled for over 2 years. I never went to a gyno because I did go to the ER a couple times. I did see an actual doctor a couple times. And every single time I'd go, they would say, yeah, this isn't normal, but people your size have really weird and irregular periods. And I was diagnosed with a UTI.
So this is an interesting point that I did want to talk about, because in this video, she kind of dances on this weird line. And there are not many things that fat acceptance has any leg to stand on, but there is something to be said about her experience in regard to the doctors and what was missed, or maybe what wasn't seen because of her size. And I found that to be an interesting sort of dilemma, you know, a quandary, something that we can think about that maybe there isn't an easy answer to, which I know a lot of people don't like it when there aren't easy answers, but it's something to consider or think about, because I have to think about it too, because there are some aspects to where this could be relevant. It sounds as if her experience was. Now, what I will say as a counterpoint is, if she was bleeding like that for 2 years, there has to be a little bit of accountability on your part, Amberlynn, that you knew that something was wrong, because that is not normal whatsoever. And so if you took what the doctor said as 100% fact, then you also did the same to yourself. You also assumed that it was completely your size causing that issue. So it's like, it's a weird thing. And I know some people will be like, oh, but it's a doctor should know better than you, da, da, da. I get that, but at the same time, it's your body. You should know that something's wrong with your body. If a doctor were to tell me that I'm perfectly healthy at my size, I would let that go in one ear and out the other, because I know that's BS. It wouldn't matter what my lab said and all that, because of how I felt and my lived experience of living, working, sleeping, everything in my body the way it was. It was awful. It wouldn't matter what a doctor said. So I do think two things can be bad at once. You know, the doctor can be somewhat ignorant, but at the same time, you can also be ignorant at the same time, okay? We have to take responsibility for our health, period. Okay.
Multiple times. So all of that fed into my delusion, and it made it to where, like, the fear of going to a gynecologist was a lot stronger than me actually going. Long story.
So that's difficult to understand. So let me know, you guys, if I'm just not getting it. I don't understand how a doctor telling her that her size is why she's bleeding would make her more scared to go to a doctor. I need that to be explained if anybody can, because that is a weird statement to me. It doesn't even, it's like where the doctor is berating her, where the doctor is yelling at her about it. You know, how would something feed into your delusion, but also make you scared at the same time? It doesn't make sense to me. So this is where I start, you know, when I think I probably think too deeply about what she's saying, honestly, but that's why I get very frustrated when I listen to her, because that to me is really weird. It's a very weird line of logic. It doesn't make much sense.
Very short, I did have uterine cancer. I ended up getting a full hysterectomy. So
I do remember, you know, I watched the algorithm, Shaped by the Algorithm by Mr. Snowflake. I watched that and I saw that in the timeline that she had uterine cancer in 2020, I believe.
I no longer have a menstrual cycle, so I don't bleed from down yonder. So if I ever notice blood from down yonder, something is wrong. So it was a little over 2 weeks ago, I went pee and I noticed there was blood in my pee. This is very hard for me to talk about. I have cried a lot about this whole thing because I am scared. When I first saw it, I
think that's understandable. It's understandable to have, you know, medical trauma, so to speak. Like, getting a cancer diagnosis is very scary. And if anything similar were to happen that preceded that prior cancer diagnosis, that would make a lot of sense to me. You know, remission can happen with cancer, but also it can come back. It is definitely understandable why that would scare her.
had so many memories flashback. Like, it was straight up as if I was back in that uterine cancer journey. Like, it hit me like this and I broke down. So after I calmed down a little bit,
that makes sense to me.
I realized, okay, you know what? This could be just a UTI. I ended up talking to my closest friends who have had UTIs, and
could be. Makes sense to me as well as an explanation offered, which that is an explanation that's not tied to her size. So again, keep that in mind when we get to later in the video, because people are saying, oh, you probably just have I almost said an STI. You probably just have a UTI. That's more of a common cause of blood in the urine. So that's not fat phobia or a fat assumption. That's what people would say typically. So, yeah.
I was like, what were you guys' symptoms? Like, I was scared, obviously. And of course, I went on to the Google, and everywhere and everyone was like, yeah, you know, a little bit of blood in your urine, totally normal for a UTI. But like, I was having no other symptoms. Like, I had no pain, nothing. So I immediately knew, okay, I need to go to a doctor. Let's get this tested. Let's get put on some antibiotics, get this figured out. So I called around to a couple doctors, and one of them was like, we don't have an appointment open until next year. I was like, did I hear you wrong? Nope, didn't hear them wrong. Literally next year. With new patients, it's very different, which I don't understand. Like,
this is true. So I've had family members have this experience. I don't know if it is a Southern thing. You know, I live in Alabama. Amberlynn lives in Oklahoma, but I don't know if there is either not a lot of doctors out here or what, but that's true. If you don't have a primary care physician, it can be tricky because they won't accept new patients. So my thoughts on it are that she should have made that a top priority, especially considering her past cancer diagnosis and experience. This should have been on the forefront of her mind, especially moving into a new area. And it's very irresponsible to not have a primary care doctor if you have this experience. You need to have somebody to go to. So that is a huge ball dropped. That is a huge lapse in responsibility. Okay, let's continue.
The concept, like, there's only certain spots open for like new patients versus like doctors who have seen the same patient over and over. I don't understand it. I'm not meant to. Long story short, every doctor that I called, they were like, yeah, you can be seen in like a couple months from now. Like, there was none that was like urgent, and this felt urgent to me. I am a woman that has blood in her pee after having uterine cancer and a full hysterectomy 4 years ago. Like, that felt urgent to me. So since I wasn't able to...
I don't disagree with her, but like I said, you should have had a primary doctor. I mean, I don't want to sit here and be like, you shoulda, woulda, coulda. But you can't be like, well, this should have been, the doctor should have understood that this is urgent. It's like, you should have understood it's urgent. I like that you're taking initiative now that it happened, that you're seeing it as urgent. That's great. That's a good thing. But you have to set things up for success.
Make a doctor's appointment, I did go to immediate care. They took my urine sample and I had no bacteria in it. I have no UTI. It shows no signs of anything. So I explained to them, I did move to Oklahoma in October. I have not gotten a doctor yet. I did not make that a priority for myself, and I should have. I understand that. So immediate care gave me a card for a doctor that probably would be willing to see me soon. So I was like, okay. So I ended up going home, calling, make an appointment. And
October till almost June is a long time. It's bad. I'm sorry. I have to call it out. I'm sure a lot of people have called it out, but that's a very long time. And you have this history. And also too, like 5 years after, stuff can happen still. You really need to still be watching it. It's not good.
And I did see that doctor. I took another urine test, and again, it came back with no bacteria, nothing wrong, like no UTI. And that's when the topic of cancer came up. And the only way for them to see if it is cancer is if I get a CT scan, which is what I'm going to do today. Obviously, there's also a chance that it's literally just kidney stones. I have had kidney stones in the past, but normally when I've had...
Could be then. But I understand the scare. I totally understand the scare, and that's valid. But that is a, nicer interpretation of what is happening. Especially if you've had kidney stones in the past, then they are likely to occur again. So hopefully that's all it is.
Kidney stones, I did have pain. So the CT scan is actually going to be looking at my pelvis and my abdomen. So the doctor did tell me, I am going to put you on some antibiotics because you could have an infection that our urine test just is not picking up. So that is the reason why I'm on antibiotics. I'm terrified, to say the least. I have broke down a lot because of this, and I actively feel myself disassociating. Right now, I just feel numb. I feel completely numb, and I know that if I wasn't in this like numb space, then I would be bawling my eyes out right now. But I think I feel safer in this weird disassociative area, because when I'm like breaking down about something that I'm extremely worried about and something that I don't know the answers to and that I currently can't control, I feel unaware of my surroundings really. And I think right now I just need to be strong. I need to go through the motions of what I need to do to figure out what this issue is so I can get it resolved, so I can figure out a solution. I still remember sitting there in immediate care and them coming back and telling me it was not a UTI, because I really believed that it was. And when they told me that it wasn't, again, it was just like flashback after flashback after flashback.
That makes sense. It's sad. Hopefully it is just kidney stones, honestly. I do hope that, truthfully. I do. I really do.
Of everything I went through before I was finally diagnosed with uterine cancer. I just kept going back and forth, like, do I want to tell you guys about this? Like, I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed, but it's also like, there are things that your body does that you are not in control over.
So I will say, I don't think she should be embarrassed, just because cancer can come back. It's a very horrific truth, but it is true. And so, yes, there can be criticisms. She hasn't done enough for her health. She hasn't done enough for this, for that, the other. I totally get that. I do. And I agree with it. But I can almost understand what she's saying, if I understand it correctly, where she's saying if it was going to come back, there's nothing that she could do about it to a certain extent, which I will say she still could take care of herself. That's where I'm like, like you can still take care of yourself, but there is a chance, or even if she did everything perfectly, she could still have this happen. And that is also true, which again, it's tricky. And I feel like on the internet, people get caught up in this stuff where it's difficult for them to see two truths at once or two ideas at once and see them happen at the same time. It can be tricky. People online can be a little black and white, and this is kind of one of those weird areas where it's a weird thing. I hope that she, regardless of what it is, takes this as a reality check that she does need to do more to keep herself going.
And I know a lot of people are like, this happened to you because of your weight. This is your weight's fault. This is your weight's fault. Not everything is because of my size and because of my weight. So it's hard to come on.
True, but it is a risk factor. So it is a risk factor towards a lot of different types of cancer. And that's also a reality. So again, you can't say always that the weight caused this, but you can say the weight put you at greater risk for this. That's the actual truth. Causation is difficult to prove in a scientific sense. And in the case like causing cancer, for example, they couldn't create a study to make people get cancer. That would be unethical. So you can't even do that on an ethical level. But correlation is a part of this. Risk factors you can assess, and obesity is a risk factor. Amberlynn Reid is also super morbidly obese, like very, very, very big. So that does make all these risks that much worse. And the longer you stay that size, the more risk there is. And she's not super, super young anymore. Being the size that she is, it's a huge risk, especially past 30 and 40 and etc. I don't know how much further she'd get. I don't know if she'd make it to her 50s if she can't get it under control, because it's a thing. I get it. It's tough to talk about. Like, there's a lot of disturbing things in this video and disturbing truths in this video, but these are all the things. This is a fact. Your size does contribute to your risk, period. It does. So if people say that, it is coming from somewhere.
On here and feel like a normal human, because I get so much like, this is your fault.
The thing is that your size is not normal. So you're not going to be a normal human. That doesn't mean that it's always bad to be abnormal. Me and Amber were both gay, for example. I don't think it's a bad thing to be gay, but it is abnormal. It is going to be something that comes up on a channel or as a part of your brand. It just is. And it's a similar thing if you're so super morbidly obese. Like, you're in a certain percentile of obesity, people are going to talk about it. There's not much that you can do about it. It is what it is. In that case, I do think it's bad. So I do think it's bad to be super morbidly obese. So people will especially talk about it because it is a lot more worthy of criticism than other ways of being not normal. This is a negative thing. It is negative. That's a fact.
Your fault. Sometimes it's just literally not my fault. I have fully taken the responsibility of me getting uterine cancer to begin with. Like, that is completely my fault. I have had health professionals tell me.
That being said, I don't think that it's necessarily, you can't say it's somebody's fault that their cancer came back. I think that's a little too much. But it is her fault that she has stayed at such a high risk. That's what it is.
No, it isn't your fault. But it's like, when you look at it and you figure out, why did I get this? It is my fault. And I would have never gotten it if it wasn't for my size. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I hold on to all the time.
It's a huge risk. Huge, huge risk to be that big.
time. The guilt that I feel about that is powerful. But I can't blame everything on my size because not everything is my size's fault. Looking at bigger.
So this, I don't know what she's saying here. So if you guys understand, I don't know where the point is going. I feel like the point completely shifted all of a sudden, and I have no idea what she's talking about. So please let me know if you found the point, if you found what made her switch gears. It was very confusing to me when I first watched this, and I'm still confused.
People and dismissing them constantly for whatever reason, it's because of their weight. It isn't fair, and it is in a way dehumanizing. But I'm not ignorant. I'm not unaware of the fact that like being larger does cause a lot of health problems. It truly does. That is why I've never been health at every size. I don't believe that you can be this size and be healthy, but I do believe that bigger people, such as myself, we do experience illnesses or sicknesses that isn't directly caused by our weight. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that makes sense.
Okay. I can kind of understand. I think she's trying to say in regard to her original diagnosis. So basically the symptoms of the bleeding is not directly caused by her size. It was caused by something else, which that's true. And that makes sense to me. And that is scary. And I would even say that is another risk factor of being obese, is that it is harder to see these issues because obesity can be such a compounding force. And there are so many symptoms to obesity, so many problems within obesity, that it can hide other diagnoses. That's another risk of it.
And that was like a big reason why like I didn't want to come on here and
because I don't think her doctors just purposely didn't see it. I don't. I think it's difficult to parse apart what symptoms are what. If these doctors had other patients that were Amberlynn's size that had very long periods or, issues, again, it is hard to know. Is it your size or is it that, So I understand her criticism, but I also can see the other side of it. And that's where we're in this difficult question in regard to this. That is a difficult thing to come to a conclusion upon, because I don't know that there is a solution for something like this. Diagnoses are missed sometimes. It's horrible. We don't want it to happen, but it does happen. There will always be flaws in the medical system. And all we can do is try our best to advocate for ourselves and try our best to reduce our risks on a personal level as much as possible. And that would include not being super morbidly obese.
Talk about this because so many people dismiss me and the things that I go through just automatically, like whether it's health stuff, mental health stuff, just like day-to-day life stuff. I'm just like constantly dismissed and judged because of my size. Like it goes.
I don't think it's just your size. I think that there's a lot of people who have watched you for so many years who personally do not like you at all. And that's a fact too. Like it can be personal. It doesn't always have to be just because it's your size, just because it's this or that or the other thing. Sometimes it is you. People don't like you. So they're going to dismiss you anyways. Also, throughout your journey, you have said many times that you have lied. So lies make people not trust you when you say something, so they dismiss it. So again, those are things that you chose to do. These are the consequences of those things. Your perception is, in some ways, it can be out of your control, but in other ways, it can be a result of what you've done. So if people dismiss what you say, it could be other reasons other than just your size. And that's a thing too. You can't assume that everybody's doing that just because of that. That's not true.
On to like simple things like Amberlynn doesn't shower because of her size, or Amberlynn doesn't walk her dog because of her size, or Amberlynn doesn't clean her house because of her size. Like I have never given any indication. Yes, 4 years ago, for sure. 2019. Wait, that's literally 5 years now. 2019, 5 years ago. Yes.
Yes. And it can suck. And I understand that there have been moments in my life, even very recently, where I have tried to outlive a reputation or outlive certain dynamics that unfortunately my obesity and my hypothyroidism was a complicating factor in many of my personal relationships over the years, and particularly over the time period of 2019 till last year. And sometimes people don't ever look past it. Even if you lose the weight, or even if you start getting your stuff together, even if you start getting better, a lot of people, their perception of you will never change. And that is something I did want to talk about, because it is a dark reality of weight loss and obesity and all these things. There are going to be some things that you don't necessarily outlive, or that you don't outlive quickly, or that you don't outlive without losing the weight. There's going to be things that people remember, that people may even resent you for. And even if it's not related to size, sometimes people will never accept that you've changed. And that's something that you have to deal with. I think all of us, I know for me, there are many things that I've had to deal with that people cannot look past. Certain things that, yes, when I look back at it, I know that my health issues were definitely a part of what I was doing and how I was acting, but it doesn't matter to other people. And that's a reality too. So it's difficult. This is, I always talk about relationship risks in terms of obesity as well. People don't talk about it, but it does affect how you think. It affects how you treat other people. It affects a lot of things. It does. And so there are consequences of that. And a lot of people that are watching Amberlynn, they're never going to forget so many of the things that she's done. They're not going to forgive her. They're not going to forget. Even if she lost all the weight, some people would still hate her. That's something that you have to accept. And that's why I always advocate that you should never lose weight to please people, because it won't necessarily please people. It won't necessarily get people to like you. It won't necessarily get all these things to occur. What it can do is get you to a healthier place where you can either start over with some people, or you can just move forward and not do certain things that you did in the past. That's all. It's all we can do. That's for anything, really. But I did want to touch on that because I found that to be an interesting line.
Those things were close to virtually impossible for me at the time. Then, I have shown
You also lied about it too. So people are going to assume all those things because you lied about taking a shower, for example. You would try to act like you did. You'd say in front of a video, I just got out of the shower, even though you hadn't showered in a very long time. Which it came out later that your ex-girlfriend said that you weren't showering. It's like when people see those kinds of things, they're not going to forget it. So they're going to doubt what you have to say. They're going to doubt that you're doing those things now. I understand that Amberlynn is not quite as big as she was at that time, but she's not that far either. So I think if Amberlynn were to lose the weight, she could get more distance from some of those really, really dark moments. And I do feel in my life, which I will say as a sort of motivational factor or inspirational factor, as I've gotten further away from supermorbid obesity, I do feel like I'm leaving behind those darker aspects or darker parts of my life. And whether other people keep me in the box of what I used to be or not, it doesn't matter to me, because I will just move forward. Because I'm going away from it. I'm moving on from it. If other people can't, that's their problem. But I'm going to move on from it. That's all we can do. We can't control other people. We can only control what we do. So once again, it goes back to you need to do something about your weight, Amber. Period.
Growth. I have shown myself walking Twinkie. We have walked a mile together multiple times. I recorded a couple.
It doesn't matter if other people see it or don't. What matters is what you're doing, what you're actually doing. That's what matters. What are you doing when nobody's watching? That's what actually matters.
Couple times. I talk about my showering. I talk about my cleaning. I talk about all these things. I've shown myself doing these things. And just because of my size, people assume that
it's because also of prior lies. So it's also your behavior as well. Once again, you can't conflate it completely. It's not just because of your size. You lied about it.
I can't do these things, and that's just really unfair. I didn't want this video to be about my weight.
You've lied in the past. A lot of people will assume you're lying today. It's just what happens.
My size, but I think that's something that's just like really truly heavy on my mind and in my heart right now, because no matter what I talk about, it could literally be anything. No matter what I talk about on this channel, somehow the reaction I receive is always weight-based.
It's how your channel started. It's literally your brand. And it's also what most of your videos are about. So you cannot do that. That is really dumb. It is what your channel is about. People will always talk about your weight. Even if you were thin, they would still talk about it because it is your literal brand. It is your brand. It is what you talk about. Your channel is a weight loss channel. Your channel started out as a weight loss channel. There's still going to be a legacy of that. And it's just dumb to act like that's why, it's dumb to make it into a fat phobia thing. It's very dumb.
Always about my size. I do talk about my weight a lot on this channel. I'm about to start a new Ozempic journey.
It's your entire channel
that I'm always going to talk about, but that doesn't mean that every single thing that I do in my life is directly a cause of my size. I want to be a person with so many things about them, and one of them just being that I'm super morbidly obese. But instead, I feel like the internet makes me just a super morbidly obese person with nothing else about her. I'm only ever seen for my...
So that comes from the branding of your channel. It comes from what you talk about. People in general, they see a channel as really one aspect of you. No shade, Amber, but people are not necessarily interested in the diary of Amber. It's about the weight. It's about a topic that's tied to you. My channel is about fatness and weight. It's a topic that's tied to me as well and my experience of losing the weight. That's a part of the experience. If you want a personal channel, you can make another channel, but it might not get as much traction and you'd have to talk about other stuff. And I agree that when you are obese or super morbidly obese, or like in my case, I'm losing weight, it is a major part of your life. It's something that's going to come up. Even on my personal channel, I talk about it still because it's a major aspect of my life at the moment. And it's going to be. And that's okay. But don't be upset if people ask you about it or if that's all some people see you as. You're not their friend, Amber. They're just spectating. They're viewing you. That's what it is. That's all it is.
My size. I don't think anybody should ever be just seen because of how they look. I will forever...
That's literally the industry you're in. YouTube is almost entirely image focused. It is one of the most image focused jobs you could do. I have even talked about on this channel how I suffered a little bit of a branding crisis last year because I was in a certain category of fatness called mid-fat, which is difficult to brand because people just don't see you because your image is off when you're in that size range. And so it makes it difficult because most people are either fatter than you or less fat than you. They're more in that small fat, more mainstream category, and they're in the super morbidly obese, very, very huge category of fatness. And you're just there. And so it's difficult on a branding level because YouTube is so image focused. So if you want a job where your appearance doesn't matter, then you're going to have to find a completely different industry and a completely different job to do. I'm sorry. It doesn't make any sense. And I understood it at the time. I had to eat crow. I was pissed, honestly, because in a lot of ways, it felt like I was being punished for losing weight. But I just kept going. And then I'm starting to come out on the other side. because eventually you keep losing, and then there you go. Then the branding crisis is over because the image has changed. Don't do an image-based career if you don't want to be judged for your appearance. It's a part of it. So get another job. That's what I would say, period.
Be more than someone who is 500 pounds. Things happen to me not because of my size, but because I'm...
People in your life know that, and most people know it on a deep level. But remember, this is YouTube. Viewers are not necessarily your friends. They're viewers, they're spectators. This is what your channel is about. I'm not going to repeat myself anymore.
I'm simply human, and we all are. And we need to learn how to respect each other and stop invalidating and dismissing what people are going through. My God, I feel like I could ramble on forever. I don't know where this video completely took a turn.
Okay, yeah, I don't understand where that came from either. I'll let you guys who've been watching Amber a lot, if you have any explanations for this, please write it down below. I'd love to read them. But thank you guys so much for watching. I will talk to you guys again very soon. I hope you have a good rest of your day, night, whatever. And yeah, see you later. Peace.